Back. This is 1 Samuel chapter 15. All this gets posted on bradflight.com/1-Samuel, which is 1 Samuel. I just didn't put the ST, so it's just a 1 Samuel. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But before we get into 1 Samuel chapter 15, let's flip back in here and let's kind of do a quick recap, okay? Because there's about 30 chapters in Samuel, so we're about halfway through. So let's just kind of quick do a recap here. So 1 Samuel chapter 1, we see the birth of Samuel. And remember, his mom and dad were going to worship, and he had 2 wives, and the one wife had lots of kids, but the one wife didn't have any kids, but he loved her a whole lot. And she prayed to God, and God said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to give you a child. And she goes, yes, I'm going to give him right back to you, I promise. And so she turned him into the tabernacle staff, the priest of the time, and his sons, and they raised him. And the mom would come visit every year at sacrifice time and bring him a new jacket or new pair of shoes because he outgrew his or whatever it was. But he literally was raised there in the tabernacle. So that's chapter 1 and chapter 2. The end of chapter 2, we see that the priest at the time's name is Eli, and he starts interacting with people and saying, hey, why are you doing these sinful things? I can't believe that that you're my sons and you're doing these terrible things. And then God basically says, all right, Eli, you turned a blind eye. You didn't do what you're supposed to do. Your sons are terrible, and your household's going to be toasted. And so at that time, while he's saying that to them, in chapter 3, he says, Samuel. And Samuel wakes up from his sleep, and he goes to see Eli. And he says, yeah, you called me? He's like, I didn't call you. I was sleeping. Dude, go back to sleep. So Samuel's laying back down. Eli, like, here, I'm here. What? It's like, I didn't call you. Go lay down. The third time, he got up, and he did that. He said, maybe God's the one calling you. Go lay down again, son. So he laid down, and when he called again, he said, here I am, Lord. How can I serve you? What do you need from me, God? And he said, you're going to be my prophet. And so that's actually reflective if you want to look up through Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8. And that's where he says, Isaiah 6:8 is where he says, I am here in the presence of God. I have unclean lips. I'm a sinner. And so the angel grabs a pair of tongs and takes some hot coal from the fire in the throne room and touches his lips and heals him. So he doesn't heal himself. The angel assists God's cleansing through his fire. And then he says, wow, I'm cleansed. This is amazing. What do you need me to do? I'm here. Send me. Because God said, who's going to go for us? And he's like, I will. I'll do it. You save me. I'm going to go. So it's the same kind of deal where he said, Samuel. And he's like, what? Samuel, I'm here. It's me. So it's answering the call, right? So then you get to chapter 4, and you see we have the Ark of the Covenant, which we talked about in Exodus. Remember? We come back to our Exodus study. You can go to bradflight.com/Exodus there. And we talked about the way they constructed it, what it was made of, what was inside of it. They talked about the mercy seat on top, that it wasn't a judgment seat. Remember, it was the mercy seat. And it was what's mercy? Who can remember what mercy is?
Not getting what you do deserve.
And what's grace?
Getting what you don't deserve.
That's right. So the mercy seat was not getting what I do deserve so that God can be in my presence. Okay, that was the mercy seat of the ark. So chapter 4, the ark gets captured. They took the ark like a token, like it's a rabbit's foot. Well, we're going to go out in this battle. We'll bring the ark along, man. We'll take it out there. We're going to whip them. Well, they don't whip them because they weren't respecting God, and the bad guys take the ark. And then we go through a number of chapters. I won't go through into detail here, but there's a number of chapters here, 5 and 6, where the other bad guys, the Philistines, have the ark, and at the different places where the ark is being held, they're getting tumors, they're getting rats, they're getting all these things that are happening. Their statues are falling down face first and breaking in presence of the ark. And so they're like, I'm not so sure that we should have this ark. Remember the whole Indiana Jones when they're chasing and they open the ark and they all die? It's kind of that, but in real life, not a movie, okay? So that's what's happening in 1 Samuel 4, 5, 6. And then chapter 7, Samuel basically says, Israel, The reason all that happened to you is because you weren't doing what you're supposed to do. You were using the ark like a token, like a rabbit's foot, instead of saying, this is the presence of God sitting on this place. You just use it inappropriately. And so you're going to be fighting with the Philistines on a regular basis here. So in chapter 8, we see the nation of Israel is in the promised land. They're still fighting the Philistines, but they say, you know what? We would really like to have, I think, a king. Because so far there hasn't been a king. They haven't had a king. And so they are saying, hey, we would really like to have someone that we can like rally behind. And maybe we can make posters of him on the wall, and it'll be red, white, and blue, and it'll be very patriotic. And we want to say, yeah, you can do it, or whatever the phrase is going to be for that campaign. This is our king. We want to rally behind this guy. And Samuel says, you have God. You have the presence of God on the ark. What do you want a king for? Well, just the dude that can carry the crown on his head, and he'll have the sword by his waistband, and, like a king. Like, you don't need a king. And so Samuel was arguing back and forth with God, saying, those people are out of line. They're asking for a king. They're rejecting you, God. And he goes, yeah, exactly. And so I did draw it for you, that one. I did draw it that one week. And so so basically, God says, no, Samuel, time out. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. I'm going to give them what they want. We'll see what happens. And so that was in chapter 9. Samuel goes and anoints Saul. And Saul was a good-looking dude. He wasn't super famous. He wasn't rich. He wasn't like an aristocrat or anything. He was literally just a worker dude. All right. And so then we see in chapter 10 that Samuel is proclaimed as the king. But as soon as Saul proclaimed Samuel as king. But it was just kind of like this ceremonial, yay, he's the king. It's not a lot. There's not a lot for him to do. So I asked everybody go back to your houses. And everybody just kind of left. Like, we got a king now. Okay, we got a king. And so then you go into chapter 11. A bad guy comes in here, and he starts terrorizing. And Saul says, not my people, not happening. And he goes over there, and he rescues them. And when he rescues them, the people are like, okay, this Saul guy, he's our king. He's kind of fighting for us. I can totally hang with this. All right, this is what we wanted, guys. It's happening. We're actually doing it here. And then Saul is then confirmed as king. It would basically be like if you had inauguration at the White House for the president, but he didn't really do anything till like March, because inauguration is normally like in January. But he just kind of like didn't move in until March or April. And then he moved in, and then he did something amazing. And they were like, oh, yeah, hey, it's the president. He's there at the White House. Like, he's been the president for 2 or 3 months. What do you... But that's kind of what happened. That's kind of what happened. They were like, yeah, this guy's actually on our side. He actually is fighting for us. Cool, let's do this thing. Samuel, though, is not real happy with the people. He's not real happy with Saul. And so he's like, all right, guys, I'm going to lay it out for you. Here's what's going to happen. All these things, I'm telling you, you think you got this, but you're going to get this. You think you got that, but you're going to get this. And he lays that out in chapter 12. All right? So that's what he's warning them. And then in chapter 13, Saul fails. Like his first foray as an official and recognized king by the people. And he fails. He drops the ball, which I'm familiar with failure. I get it. But he fails. But it ends up being not that big a deal. Israel doesn't get hurt. And then you get chapter 14. Jonathan, his son, is like, hey, you know what? Those bad guys are over there. I bet, hey, you guys, I bet if we sneak over there, we could totally take them by surprise, and we could kick their butts. So then Saul's like, no, hang back. He's like, I need to know how many people are over there on this side. How many people are on this side? Why are there only 3 people over here? Who's over there? Your son and his troop was over there. Well, where are they? Oh, there they are. They're sneaking up to the enemy encampment over there. And then they catch them by surprise, and they actually win. But is Saul excited that his son's alive and he actually did something good? No. He's upset with his son, and he publicly humiliates him in chapter 14. So Saul, so far, is he had a quick meteoric rise, and then very quickly he's on the down. Okay, so now we're in
cliff-like fall.
Yeah, basically right off the cliff. So now we're in 1 Samuel chapter 15, and we're going to read through it together. And I got a few notes, but there's really not a lot for me to bring to you besides what we're going to talk about, because this is a pretty apparent. There's not a lot of like hidden nomenclature or extra, Hebrew words or anything. This is pretty apparent. So we're going to read through this, and I think it's going to be interesting for us to see how God is responding to Saul's failure as king in such a short window. Okay? So 1 Samuel 15. Samuel said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore listen to the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I remember what Amalek did to Israel." Do you remember Amalek? Do you heard that word before? If you remember, wind back your memory a little bit. Exodus chapter 17, the Israelites are in Rephaim on their way to Mount Sinai, and they run into a band of goons. And that's where, when Moses' staff was being held up, they were winning. And when his arms got tired, they started losing. And so they held his arms up for him. Remember that? Who were they fighting? They were fighting the Amalekites. So this is the Amalek of the Amalekites. Okay? So he says, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, I remember what Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt." So remember that story now? Exodus 17. "Now go and strike Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not have compassion on them, but put to death both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey." Now, what of that list did we not name? We pretty much named everything, right? So what are we supposed to be saving here? Nothing.
You got to kill the babies.
I mean, we're killing babies here. And as much as I'm a fan of protecting the lives of babies, I'd have a hard time following through with this command, except for I know it's the man of God saying, "Thus says the Lord." I'm like, this is gonna be rough. I'm pretty much gonna make Harvey do this job.
If you're gonna kill the
Got you. I'll take care of it.
If you kill the baby, then you're almost bad for letting anything else survive. Like, you let the lizard live. You let the lizard live.
Yeah, exactly. So, verse 4. "So Saul summoned the people together and numbered them in Telaim, 200,000 foot soldiers." So they had a big army. Now remember, as a reminder, do you remember how much we guesstimated came in the Exodus out of Egypt into between 2 and 4 million people. So 200,000 is a lot. But you're looking at like 10% of the population. So 1 out of 10 people. If we have 10 people here, so one of us would be going. So it's really not, it's impactful, but it's not as much as it sounds like. Still, it's 200,000. 200,000 people, right? "And 10,000 men of Judah." He calls out Judah specifically here. Do you remember why he calls out Judah here? In the book of Judges, he actually says, when you go in to take the promised land, to go and strike them out, and he says, take out woman and man, child and infant, ox, donkey, get rid of them out of my land. This is your promised land. It's my promised land, and they're in here. Get rid of them. And he says, first strike, my Delta Force, tribe of Judah. Get in there. That's what he says in Judges. Like chapter 1. Okay? Chapter 2 of Judges. So here we see here a reference to that. He says, "And 10,000 men of Judah." So why would he call them out separately? Because that's my Delta Force. Right? My special forces, my black ops, right? Then Saul came to the city of Amalek and laid an ambush in the valley. Saul said to the Kenites, another people that were in that valley, he said, "Go, depart, go down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them." So what was God's command in the beginning? Verse 3. Who?
Kill everybody.
Who?
Amalekites.
Amalekites. So by saying to the Kenites, get out of the way. That's okay, right? Because he specifically asked to kill the Amalekites, not the Kenites. He didn't say everybody in the valley. He said the Amalekites. Okay? So it'd be like if some of like Mike, your heritage is from the Scottish. McCall, originally. Till you Americanized it to just call. And so you're from Spain, Portugal, right? So, like, we're all here together. It'd be like, you know what? All of you from Portuguese, Spanish heritage, you guys get on out of here because we're here to strike down the Scottish, not these guys. So that you're all in the same room, but like, we're actually focus on a certain group here. Okay, so lest I destroy you with them, for you showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Egypt. So the Kenites departed from them. The Kenites said, "We're out of here. Thanks for the heads up. We really appreciate that. We're gone." And they packed up their bags and they left. Now we're into verse 7. Then Saul struck the Amalekites from Havilah until you come to the Shur, which is near Egypt. So remember, Havilah is up here. It's part of where the ark traveled. And then Shur is right at the edge of the desert, right before you start getting into Egypt. If you remember, the desert of Shur is where Hagar, the slave woman who had Ishmael with Abraham and Sarah, when she ran away, she went to the land of Shur, which is a desert land on the border between Israel and Egypt. So this is the same land. So they went from Havilah to Shur, which is near Egypt. Verse 8, he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. So, what do we see?
He broke the rules. You're supposed to kill them all.
Seriously? He just left one.
Don't matter. He didn't
It's just one.
Still disobedience.
But it's just one. I could be, maybe I'm Saul the merciful because I let one live.
Right.
Ah.
That wasn't the instructions.
It wasn't the instructions. Good. You guys are thinking. Here we are in verse 9. But Saul and the people spared Agag. Oh, not just Agag, but the best of the sheep, oxen, fatlings, and lambs. And all of that was good that they were not willing to utterly destroy them. So, did they actually follow the command?
No.
But it's all about how you tell the story, right? So go back up to verse 8 here. It says that they took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive and utterly destroyed all the people. Like, I'm telling the story that sound, I utterly destroyed them. I saved this guy, though. And all the good livestock. And the gold and the silver and, it's all good, man. Like, we it's...
Killed all the weak ones.
Have we ever done that in our lives? Have we ever, God said, don't do this or go do this, and we say, yeah, but...
What are you not willing to let go of?
What are you not willing to let go of? Quit looking at that on your phone. No, I'm just...
Oh, I thought you did.
No. Quit looking at that on your phone, and then we get to this place where it's like, oh, but it's been a few weeks. What's the harm? No big deal. I've been sober for 4 years. A drink wouldn't hurt.
Correct. Exactly.
A hit of this wouldn't be that big of a deal.
A shot of that?
Yep. So that's what we're dealing with. Okay? So then we get to verse 10. Then the word of the Lord to Samuel, saying, then came the word of the Lord to Samuel, saying, I regret that I have set up Saul to be king because he has turned back from following me, and he has not carried out my words. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried to the Lord all night. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Is God surprised at Saul's failure?
No.
Is he shocked? Is he baffled?
No.
Is he befuddled?
But where it says that he regrets it, I would act like he was unaware.
Yeah, but how many things do you do that you know you're going to regret after? You know it.
Why would I create a people in my own image, give them the free will to turn around and love me, the Creator, and they're going to hate me? I choose to give people the choice. He didn't create Saul the robot. He created Saul the human and gave him a choice. So he can still feel regret, even though he had foreknowledge of what was going to happen. He can still feel regret over it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm still feeling, man, I was really hoping. I mean, I know foreknowledge, I know he's not, but man, really was hoping he was going to do something different. Really was hoping he was going to follow through. And he just didn't. I mean, I knew he wasn't. But results are not equivalent to causation. Because God knew the results doesn't mean that God caused the results. The man decided himself. Does somebody force you to put a meth pipe in your hand?
Nope. But I did it every day, and I've regretted it every day.
Was that God knowing that you were going to do it? Or did God make you do it? So knowing that you were going to do it doesn't mean that he stopped you from doing it. He allowed that to happen because it was your choice. He foreknew that it was going to happen. And there was regret, I'm sure. It's like, man, I got Harvey over here. But he also foreknew you're going to follow him. And you're going to have this new creation and this new life in him.
That's why he lets me do the curses.
That's right. 100%. So Samuel here, who is Samuel? Let's remind ourselves who Samuel is. He's the prophet. He's like the head pastor of the nation of Israel. Okay? And here he is. He's trying to be the intermediary. He's talking. Okay, God, what are you saying? Okay, hold on. All right, Saul, you suck. And you're done. Right? Okay, what else you got? Because I like that one. Yeah, I know. I regret that you made him king too. I warned him, right? So this is Samuel. He's going back and forth. And Samuel is so upset about what happens. What does it say? In the bottom of verse 11 there, what does it say? All night. He cried. He was hurt. He was hurt. He was heartbroken.
Cried out to the Lord all night.
So my question is, for you two, who cried out all night long to the Lord on behalf of your sin? Who cried out for months and months and months on behalf of your sin, Mike? Who cried out for years on behalf of your sin, John? Because they see how awesome God is and they see how terrible our sins are. And you know what? We are called as children of God now. We are called to do that for others. I don't think that Samuel here was crying, saying, oh, why are you doing? You're ripping it away. You're ripping away his kingship, God. Oh, man, just give him another chance. I think he is saying, God, I followed your instructions. It still fell apart. And you're hurt because of this broken relationship between you and Saul. And that grieves me. Verse 12. When Samuel rose early to meet Saul in the morning, it was told Samuel, saying, Saul came to Carmel, Mount Carmel, which is right up here on the coast, right there, Mount Carmel, and set up himself a monument. Then he turned and has passed on down to Gilgal. So he set up a monument for himself. What was he celebrating? What was he setting up a monument? You remember what we call these stone monuments? Anybody remember? We talked about it back in the beginning of 1 Samuel. That these stone monuments, they're literally a stone like this, and it would have like an inscription of some, I don't know how to write Hebrew, but they put some sort of inscription on there, and it would be a monument to, this is what God did here. And that word,
You mean like a headstone but really big, or what?
no, it looked like it's probably something like this. There's still some sitting up in the Middle East.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they're called Ebenezer's. So when you go to the Christmas Carol, remember, the Ghost of Christmas Past, Ghost of Christmas Present, what's the guy's name? Ebenezer Scrooge. And do you know why it's called Ebenezer? Because it's a reminder, this is what happened in my life.
Oh, I see. So
Right? Yeah. So that's where that's coming from. Now, does it say, we've read this before in other parts of 1 Samuel here, when we were in chapters 1 through 14. It says that they raised an Ebenezer here to celebrate. Remember when the ox cart came on its own and it settled up there and they burned the ox cart and they killed the ox and they made a sacrifice that God had returned the ark back to them? We talked about that. They put up stones and they said, we're going to raise an Ebenezer here to celebrate God bringing the ark back through those ox that had a choice to run away or to follow God's leading and come back with the ark back to the land of Israel. So they put up an Ebenezer. What is the word that we see here in verse 12? What did Saul do?
Set up a monument in his own honor. Turned and gone down to Gilgal.
Did he set up an Ebenezer?
For himself, though.
It wasn't an Ebenezer. An Ebenezer is to remember what God has done in my life. What's the word they used?
Monument.
Words are important. A monument.
Right.
For whose honor? The Ebenezer is God's honor for what God did. Who's the monument for?
His own.
It says he set himself up a monument.
Ooh.
What verse are we in? 13.
We're in 13 now. So we see Saul setting up a monument for his own glory. Interesting, huh? What did he do?
Praising himself.
For what?
For what God did.
Go back to verse 8. What did Saul do?
He disobeyed God.
No, I didn't disobey God. I mean, I utterly destroyed the people, except for this one guy over here, and we got rid of all the lame, cows and sheep. But
Like 98% followed us. He got 98%.
He took it into his own hand and he slayed God himself.
That's right. And then who got the glory when he put up the monument? He did.
Making himself an idol.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Uh-oh. So let's go to chapter 15, verse 13 here. Samuel came to Saul. Oh, boy. You ready for some fireworks? Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him, "Blessed are you, the Lord. Are you of the Lord? I have carried out the word of the Lord."
Next part's funny.
Dude, I totally did it, man. Look what I did. I followed God. Look at me, man. Did I get like a medal or something? This is going to be fun. Celebrate me, right? This is fun times.
all about himself.
Verse 14. Samuel said, "Then what is the sound of that flock of sheep in my ears, huh?"
Yes. That's the sound.
And the sound of cattle, which I'm hearing? What is that I'm hearing? I mean, that's kind of a smart look. That's the way I would probably respond to somebody, right? And Saul said, "They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed." So the excuse was under what premise?
That they were going to sacrifice.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. We saved all the choicest ones. We're going to sacrifice them. Yeah, we're gonna sacrifice
We're going to
these.
sacrifice them. We're going to burn them up good, and then we're going to eat them.
So, verse 16. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Stop. Just time out, man. Really, stop. And I will tell you what the Lord spoke to me this night." And he said to him, "Speak. Come on, let me hear it." And Samuel said, "When you were little in your own sight, were you not made the head of the tribes of Israel? And the Lord anointed you king over Israel? And the Lord sent you on a journey and said, 'Go and utterly destroy the sinners of Amalekites and fight against them until they are destroyed.' Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? And why did you rush upon the spoil and do evil in the sight of the Lord?" So he's saying, you did these things. It's not about me. I'm not the one making the calls here. I'm just relaying. Why are you doing these things? In verse 20, Saul said to Samuel, "I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and I have followed in the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took from the plunders sheep and oxen, the first fruits of the banned things to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal." Now, who took those things?
He said the soldiers did.
Other people. Hey, I'm starting to. But I did. But they took the sheep over there. I mean, they took them. But they said they were going to. Time out. They're going to sacrifice it. I mean, like it's.
Trying to rationalize.
Yeah. So verse 22, Samuel said, "Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much in obeying the voice of the Lord?"
No, obedience is more important than sacrifice.
Obedience is better than sacrifice. A listening ear than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king.
Amen.
Does God need you to put 10% of your income into that box right there? Does God need you to imprint your butt cheeks into that cushion on that chair on Sunday morning?
Absolutely not.
No. Does God need you to watch and change diapers in the nursery? What does he need? Obedience. Now that's obedience when it's like really easy. Right? But when it's really hard, then you can just kind of make a decision on if it's something I want to do or not. Is that what you hear? Is that what you hear? Robbie, what do you think?
It's reading my diary.
Obedience, whether it's easy or hard, difficult or simple. We are called to be obedient to him. The other stuff will take care of itself. Remember I was telling you guys a little while ago about my past few months?
Right.
He takes care of the other stuff.
Once you're obedient, everything else.
I want you to be obedient, Brad. I want you to be obedient. I'll take care of the rest. That's no big deal.
Because when you're not, it's just like practicing witchcraft.
That's what it says.
Mm.
That's what the scripture says.
Now, that's what Robbie says, right?
No, that's what the scripture says.
The scriptures say that. Oh, man.
Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft.
1 Samuel 15:23. Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft.
And then defiance is like wickedness and idolatry.
So, when I say, and you know what? If we were getting medals, I'd get a medal for rebellion. I'm pretty good at it. I like to kind of march to my own drum.
I think we all.
I like to march to my own drum a lot. My wife is the one, she's like the rule follower. Remember the whole deal I was telling you about the tablecloths?
Yeah.
Like, well, she said we could use them, but we had to dry clean them. So I've got to dry clean them. Yeah. And I'm like, dry clean them, smite clean them. We're just going to put them we're going to wash them.
That's
Well, wash them and dry them, yeah.
all right. We thought that was necessary.
But that doesn't make me right. Technically speaking, we should have gotten permission ahead of time to say, hey, listen, instead of dry cleaning, would you mind if we'd done like we've done before and go ahead and wash and dry them? She would have been totally fine with that. And I didn't hide it from her anyway. But there was a seed of rebellion in that. Something as stupid as tablecloths. I'm sure none of you have ever had anything like that before. Verse 24. Saul's going to respond. Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and your words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. Uh-oh. What's he doing?
Making excuses.
Yeah. Making excuses. I mean, in the scheme of things, do you think God really cares if every single goat, ram, sheep, oxen is killed? I mean, in the scheme of eternity, does God really care about that? He wants the obedience part of that. If he had said, leave 7 of the choice sheep, he could have said that too. It has nothing to do with the sheep.
He's just testing your obedience.
He's testing the obedience. Number 25. Now therefore, please pardon my sin and return with me that I may worship the Lord. So he's already gone where? Where did Saul go? Yeah, to Mount Carmel. And what did he do?
Build a monument.
He built a monument. Not an Ebenezer. He built a monument. So he already went and worshipped. Who did he worship? Himself.
Is that where Isaiah's going to, or not Isaiah, but Elijah's going to go?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
He's going to tear it down. But look, he says, I've already gone and worshiped myself there, but I mean, yeah, I'm kind of sorry, and the people made me do it, so why don't you just go with me, and we'll worship God now together.
I'm kind of sorry.
But not really.
Look at his words. Am I making that up? I mean, read what he said.
K-I-N-D-A.
And so, verse 26, Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and, hammer drop, the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. Ooh. Talk about, remember, what do they call that when you're like a 90-day employee or a provisional employee? Like, yeah, your probational employee. Didn't make the cut, buddy. You're done. You're done. Your 90-day review, you're out. You're gone. As Samuel turned about to go, Saul seized the edge of his robe and tore it. Don't go, get over here. And Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you this day and has given it to a neighbor of yours who is better than you. Oh. I think for me, Samuel is quickly becoming one of my Old Testament heroes. This dude's pretty bad to the bone. He's kind of got some snark. He's got some sarcasm. He's got a little bit of bite to him. But he also follows the Lord. I think Samuel's kind of cool. I really like Samuel. Like, oh, you ripping my robe? Well, guess what? God just ripped your kingdom away from you, sucker. You're done.
So they just tell him you're not king anymore? And
Yeah.
there's no, like,
Yeah.
really?
Well, how many kings did they have? What kind of protocols do they have set up?
I know you're right. I'm just saying. Hey,
And it's not a democracy. That they don't have to go to the voting booth to like vote them out of office. Like,
Listen to the prophets.
we all decided you're not king anymore, bro.
Yeah.
As
You're out.
you're not king anymore, bro.
You're out.
That's right. You're done.
And not only is he ripped it away from him, what is God going to do? 28, the end of 28. Not only is God ripping the kingdom away from him, from Saul.
Let's see. Give it to your neighbor again.
Oh, who's better than you? Now, who is the neighbors to the Israelites? Who have they been fighting? The Philistines. He just said, I'm taking, yes!
A what? A Philistine?
Samuel is like throwing it down, man. Samuel's throwing it down. He says, here, listen, check this out. You just ripped my robe, but God just ripped away your kingdom. And he gave it to one of your neighbors. And he's better than you. And his neighbors are the Philistines who they're fighting. I mean, Samuel, whew. I love it. Also, the strength of Israel will not lie nor repent, for he is not a man that he should repent. And then he said, I have sinned, yet please honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel, and turn back with me that I may worship the Lord your God. Don't embarrass me in front of everybody. Dude, who is Saul concerned about? Numero uno. Now, if you'll remember, go back to, I think it was chapter 9 or 10 we talked about, 11, somewhere in there. Saul was anointed. Do you remember what he was? He was like an ox herder or a shepherd or something. I mean, he was a nobody, out in the woods, out in the fields, doing nothing. And his fame really got to his head really fast. Big-headed real fast. So Samuel turned back after Saul, and Saul worshipped the Lord. And Samuel said, bring me Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And you can see Agag being like, finally, I can talk to someone who's like maybe going to be level-headed here. And Agag came to him reluctantly, but Agag said, surely the bitterness of death is past. Like, surely all of our fighting... Can we just like agree to disagree? Like, we've been fighting you guys, and we hurt you guys back in the time of Moses, and we've been fighting with you, but you've like pretty much killed all of my people. I'm the only one left. So surely this game's over, right? So let's look at what Samuel says in verse 33. As your sword has made women childless, so will your mother be childless among women. And Samuel hacked Agag into pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. So, who followed in obedience God's command? Samuel. Who's the king? Not Samuel. Yeah. Then Samuel went to Ramah, and Saul went up to his house to Gibeah of Saul. And now Samuel did not see Saul up to the day of his death, but Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord regretted that he had made Saul king over Israel. When you see these narratives in the Old Testament like this, we shouldn't be surprised that we see human depravity on display. And although Mike's not hacking up a rival neighbor in the neighborhood who got yard of the month and he didn't, how many times do I talk bad about people? How many times do I try to make myself look better than I should at the expense of other people? My pride to set up a monument to myself should not eclipse the Ebenezer of what God is doing in my life.
Amen and hallelujah. That's deep.
Because when I put my monument up for myself, I get my glory.
Diminish the Lord.
Hey, Chris, you hear that?
But when I set up God getting the Ebenezer, I get the blessing of the Lord, and others get to see what God's doing in my life.
Amen.
God is supremely concerned about your obedience, not about your popularity, not about how cool you look, not about how you dress, not how you wear your mustache, whether it's creepy or not. God is not concerned about those things. He's concerned about your obedience.
Amen.
And he gives us the free will to choose to be disobedient if we choose it. He doesn't want that or choose it for us. We choose it. But we see here multiple times it says that he grieved those decisions that Saul made. We hurt God's feelings by our disobedience. Doesn't surprise him, doesn't shock him, doesn't befuddle him, doesn't bewilder him. It grieves him. Because he knows what's supposed to be the right thing to do, and we're choosing to not do that thing.
That's why he blessed you so abundantly once you surrendered to your wife. Like,
That's my Ebenezer.
yeah, that's why he did that for you.
Because it wasn't about me fixing it. Otherwise, I would have already fixed it, but I couldn't fix it. So it was Ebenezer. So that's 1 Samuel 15. We'll be back next week for 1 Samuel 16. See you then.
Hallelujah.